I've heard it said that you won't be rich until you learn how to work 1,000 hours per day. And you know what? I found out a way to do just that without knocking myself out. Over the next few Fridays, I'm going to be doing some videos on finances. And if this topic sounds interesting to you, well, make sure to hit the like button, subscribe, and tap that notification bell so you don't miss anything that's coming. Today, I want to bust a myth about dividends that I've heard over and over again on the internet. Now, this is the way that they explain it. Let's say that you have a stock that's worth $100, and that stock decides to pay you a dividend of $5. Now, what they're saying is you now have a stock that's worth only $95 because they paid you a dividend, and you've got $5. In other words, all you've done is transferred some money from one source to another. You haven't made anything. You still only have $100. Now, that does seem to make sense when you first listen to it, but I want to tell you how dividends really work. You see, back in the 1990s, I had a job where the only way I was paid was dividends. And then I worked for a number of years for an accountant, and I did books for many, many companies that paid their shareholders, their owners, in dividends only. So I do have a lot of experience in this area, and I know how it really works. Here's the truth. Dividends are paid out of current income for the company, at least for a healthy company. So here's how it works. Let's go back to their story. You have a company and the stock is worth $100. Now, what happens is, let's say that company, and we'll make the math easy, makes $10, and they decide to pay you a dividend of $5. So now you've got $5 cash and you've got a stock which is now worth $105. $100 plus the $10 in profit minus the $5 they paid to you. So now you've got $110. You have made money. If this information is helping you, I'd like to ask a favor of you that you consider supporting my channel by buying me a coffee. There's a link below to do that. Now, as I said, I was paid dividends only for a number of years. And when I retired from accounting, because of my dividend income, I began investing in various companies. Now, I had some very strict criteria to decide which companies I was going to invest in, and I'll be talking more about that next Friday. Now, some of those companies that I invested in are now paying me 18% dividends. They didn't pay that much when it started, but I held on to the stock long enough that the dividend went up and up and up. And 18% dividends means that every 4 years, I get back my initial investment on the company. That company cost me nothing. They've repaid me every penny. In fact, they've repaid me more than that because most of the companies I own increase their dividends every few months. Now, in addition to those dividends I've earned, some of those companies have doubled or more in value, which means I now have 3 times my initial investment, and that's how I was able to retire. I'm not going to tell you what you should or should not invest in, but in upcoming videos, as I mentioned, I'll talk about how I decide which companies to invest in, and I'll also fess up to mistakes I made along the way. Here's some facts on companies that pay dividends. And I have looked at research from Ned Davis Research, from Hartford Funds, and from RBC Global Asset Management. And what they all tell me is that stocks that pay dividends return about 9% per year. Stocks that do not pay dividends return about 1.22% per year. Yes, there's exceptions, there always are, but on average, that's what you can expect. In fact, 47% of the growth in the stock market has come from dividends. So if you want to know how I pick stocks, make sure to tune in next Friday. Thank you for watching. I'll see you next time. And in the meantime, here's a few more videos for you to watch.